Welcome, everyone. I'm introducing today because today's a special podcast, a special episode of the More Beautiful World podcast. And there's a reason for that, because we are improvising. We are going with the flow. We're making things happen. We're allowing things to happen that instead of giving in to the man, this is what we're doing. Uh, so I'll tell you a quick story, because part of our game that we're playing today is to get this podcast done in 15 minutes. So we'll see how that goes. So the game is, the reason why we're getting it done in 15 minutes is because Jeremy, my good friend Jeremy, whom I love dearly, has been slammed by his, I don't know, I don't want to make you into a victim, but anyway, the situation got sticky for him, and he had to cancel. He said, I'm going to have to cancel this podcast for this week. And it's like, no, we're gonna get creative and find a way to do this. Shoot, that's the first time I ever wore my glasses. All right, I do wear glasses for reading anyway. So we're we're making it up as we go along, but we wanted to come up with another thing. And so I said, don't, hey buddy, I'm telling everyone, Jeremy, I'm telling everyone what I said to you. I said, hey buddy, don't worry about it. Let's chill, man. This is the more beautiful world we're creating. So instead of putting on the pressure for him to prepare in the usual way he does, it's like, just get done what you need to do, and I'll come up with an idea to make it real easy. So he doesn't know exactly what I'm going to do here. Okay. But we're gonna be done in 15 minutes. So you can get back to your working for the man. Is it that bad? I don't even know what your job is.
Well, it's not really working for the man. I was just I had to jump in on a big video editing project that started on Monday, and of course the client wasn't ready on Monday.
Yeah, the client is the man.
So I lost a whole day, and then Tuesday I had to go in for a meeting.
Yeah, okay, fine. You know, we don't need those details. We've only got 15 minutes.
Yeah, well,
we've got to rush through this, man.
Anyway, so needless to say, I was not prepared at all. I haven't read any of the chapters, so I'm completely in the dark here, and it's kind of exciting. So
now, to be fair, though, you have read the whole book before. You just haven't reviewed the chapters.
Yes, I have read the whole book before, but usually we reread the chapters in advance so that we can prepare and kind of know what we're talking about a little bit. So,
all right. So my creative solution to this dilemma is that I'm going to interview you, so you don't have to know anything in advance. I'm just going to ask you questions based on the chapters, and then we'll riff on that. Okay. And we're going to just get like 2 minutes per chapter, and then you can go back to your oppressive work.
Yeah, and the helicopters are already circling. You can probably hear them.
No, I can't hear them, so we'll have to put that in post. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
So today we're covering 5 chapters. They are pain, pleasure, hate. Pain, pleasure, judgment, hate, and righteousness. This is dark stuff. Maybe this is the reason this is happening is so we don't have to get too dark.
Maybe.
All right. So let's begin. Are you ready for this interview?
Yep.
Here we go. In chapter 23, Charles describes how the function of pain is to draw attention to our unmet needs. These include the need to express one's gifts and do meaningful work, the need to love and be loved, the need to be truly seen and heard, and to see and hear other people, the need for connection to nature, the need to play, explore, and have adventures, the need for emotional intimacy, the need to serve something larger than oneself, and the need to do, sometimes, absolutely nothing and just be. Not bad.
That's a lot of needs, but
that's a lot of needs, but they're all very beautiful needs. So he says, or so I say, my question for you, Jeremy, is, can you think of an example from your own life, perhaps recently, in which you felt pain because one of those needs went unmet?
Wow. God, that's a good question. I think on some level, all of those needs are not being met in some way on a daily basis because I think we're always constantly um, trying to fulfill those needs, and of course, lots of things get in the way. I'm trying to think of a specific example.
Take your time. We can edit
Yeah,
this out if you need to. Just
yeah. Read to me again what those needs were.
all right. So the need to express your gifts and do meaningful work.
Okay, we'll start with that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one that I think is a constant challenge for me. So actually, it's very appropriate right now. So I'm working on this corporate video, and my whole career has been spent juggling between doing the work because I have to make a living and doing the work because it's adding something meaningful to the world. And not all of the projects I work on, I feel, add anything of value to the world. They're just, they're creating profit for somebody else, or they're purely entertainment, and they're not really carrying any valuable message that changes anything. And I've always really struggled with that about the work that I do. When I did my own film, that was different because I feel like there's a message there that's meaningful, that's already helping people, and that feels incredibly valuable. And I wish I could do more of that. So I feel a lot of constant sort of pain, if you like, or frustration that the work that I do doesn't always make a valuable difference in the world.
Beautiful. So, okay, next question. I'm not even going to do a follow-up on that because
Yeah.
we've got a mission here. We're going to get this done in 15 minutes. So instead of ending pain by embracing it, giving full attention to it, and letting it reveal the deeper unmet needs that cause it, most people try to medicate pain with superficial pleasures. What are some of your favorite ways to avoid addressing the root causes of pain?
Ah, boy, this is a good interview. What are some favorite ways of avoiding the root causes of pain? Finding all kinds of distraction. I mean, the internet's a big one. I'll go on and spend an hour on Facebook, just perusing around and wasting an hour so that I don't have to really look at what's going on internally with me. That's one. And of course, there's all kinds of fun and interesting things to find on the internet, just to waste time on.
Now, remember, though, I mean, the one of those needs that Charles talked about was the need to sometimes do absolutely nothing. You think that's different, like what you're calling wasting time versus doing nothing?
No, because I see doing nothing as being productive. Wasting time for an hour on the internet is not productive. I mean, I might get one or two little tidbits of information that are interesting that I might use in some way, but or find helpful in some way. But most of it's just sort of, it's a distraction. It's like watching television. I don't have a television, but it's the same kind of thing. You're just flipping channels aimlessly, looking for something. You don't even know what. But see, doing nothing to me would actually be more valuable in some regard. But for some reason, I can never seem to find time to do nothing. So anyway, that's probably the most common way. And sometimes I'll drink my way through half a bottle of wine and get buzzed to the point where I just have to go to sleep. And then that's another way of not dealing with it.
Great. And do you ever do as Charles suggests, when you embrace the pain, that it leads you to understanding your deeper needs?
For sure, yeah, absolutely. But it's not always easy to embrace the pain.
Yeah.
You know.
So we're not here to judge anyone.
No, I know, and of course, we live in a culture where it's incredibly easy to be distracted because we're constantly, there's temptations everywhere to be distracted with this thing or that thing. So it's actually very hard to cut all that out and just sit and be still and be with the pain and find out, well, what's really going on here? What is this about?
Yeah. Perfect. All right, let's move on to chapter 24, pleasure. Charles wrote, the deeper the deeper the unmet need, the greater the pleasure in meeting it. Jeremy, recall some memories of great joy and pleasure and see if you can identify what deep needs were met.
Oh God, you're really putting me on the spot. Recall some. Say the question again.
What are some memories of great joy and pleasure that you can recall? And what were the deeper needs met in those moments?
Well, okay. The biggest one that comes to mind is so I heard my daughter's heartbeat for the very first time on my 40th birthday. And that was a pretty incredible moment because first it was the sort of reality of the fact that we were going to have a baby became really apparent. It was the first time, literally, that we had heard her heartbeat. We went to see our midwife. It happened to be my birthday that day. I was turning 40, and I got to hear the heartbeat. And it was me. It was like when I was thinking about the gift of that. I got a heartbeat for my birthday.
Wow.
And so, in terms of unmet need, that was, meeting that need for intimacy and connection was huge, huge.
Right.
Because when I started thinking about, the rest of my birthday, we didn't do much particularly to celebrate. That was it. We went to our midwife meeting and we heard our heartbeat of our daughter. And I was like, that's about the best gift that anyone could get for a birthday.
Right. Right. It's not just the need for connection to a child, but connection to life. I mean,
yeah,
it's so profound.
Yeah, I mean, and connection to my wife and to what, the life that we were creating together and the life that was coming into our lives that we hadn't yet met. It was all right there in that one moment, just listening to that thing. It was like, wow, that is just insane. So, yeah.
Beautiful. All right, let's go on. Charles says that hedonism can be subversive because when you give yourself permission to follow your pleasure, you eventually lose interest in the shallow pleasures that are glorified in the old story. And you begin to desire the deeper pleasures of interbeing. Have you ever experienced that or seen it happen in others? This shift from kind of because of allowing one to just follow one's pleasure to have it shift from this more shallow kind of consumer pleasure toward a deeper kind of pleasure.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's interesting. I'm just trying to think how that might relate to something I've experienced. I think it's interesting that sometimes we associate the idea of pleasurable things as being what we need to, at that moment, and then we may indulge in them and find that that's actually not what we needed at all. It was actually something else. Or that pleasurable thing is really just another distraction.
Right.
And the sort of deeper pleasures are often harder to reach. Yeah, that's a deep question. I'd have to sit with that one.
Nothing come to mind immediately?
Immediately, I'm trying to think of. I can't recall right off the top of my head.
Well, this is a perfect opportunity for me to say to our viewing audience that we would love to get your answers to these questions. So
I like that idea.
If you want to just rewind, you go back and listen to the first couple of questions and give us your answers. Post them on Facebook. We have somewhere here, you'll see a link to know where to go to post on Facebook or YouTube or wherever. So yeah, we want you in the conversation too. So these interview questions are for everyone. All right. Let me know if you come up, if something pops in your head later on that particular question. Let's move on to chapter 25, judgment. So he talks about an interesting sort of psychological concept. He says the habit of negatively judging people depends on a belief system called dispositionism, which basically says that people who do bad things are innately bad people. On the other hand, compassion arises from situationism, which essentially says that if I were in your shoes, if I had lived through all you've lived through, I might have done exactly what you did. So, can you think of a time when you judged someone and then later forgave them because you gained an understanding of his or her situation?
A specific situation? Yeah.
Sure.
I mean, I think that's happened a lot in that, I think, well, I'm personally sometimes, so I'll be really honest. So I like to present myself as not a judgmental person because I don't say things out loud often that are judgmental. However, my interior dialogue might be saying something different. And I've noticed that, yeah, of course I judge. And I jump to conclusions very quickly. And it's been my experience that often the qualities that I may be judging in another person or the situation I may be judging is really a quality in myself that I haven't come to terms with. I may sort of look around and go, well, that person's just, loud and obnoxious or something. What an ass, And then later on, I might think, when I'm being loud and obnoxious, go, wow, I'm kind of being like that guy I saw the other day. You know what I mean? Or I may realize, well, the reason I was judging them as being loud and obnoxious is because I'm afraid to be loud and obnoxious.
Hmm.
It's a quality.
Interesting. Oh, yeah.
It's a quality that I haven't really accepted in myself. That there's something about that that makes me uncomfortable. So then, when I see someone being loud and obnoxious, I judge them for it rather than thinking, "Well, yeah, how come I'm not loud and obnoxious?"
Right. Wow. That's pretty deep. I mean, just this idea that what you judge in other people is something that you're really judging in yourself, but that you might actually desire it.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. It could be, yeah, that it's a quality that you have in yourself that you haven't fully acknowledged, or it's a quality that perhaps you wish you had and you haven't been able to tap into.
Right.
So to
I
me,
can share.
yeah. Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I can share a quick example. Last week, there was a Republican presidential debate, and the big news from that, of course,
Yeah.
is Donald Trump and his bombastity, but bombasticness. I don't know what that word is. I'm just judging him. But anyway, during the debate, I remember feeling judgmental about Megyn Kelly, one of the questioners, and I thought, I was thinking the same thoughts that Donald Trump was thinking, like, what a bitch. Maybe not that bad, but then he took it and rolled with it. And of course, there's all this controversy around how he then insulted her later in later interviews.
Yeah.
And I'm looking, wow, it's like, and I didn't even realize it until now because I was thinking, what a judgmental asshole. But actually, I had done the same thing. Maybe not for the same reason he did it, but just as judgmental. So
Yeah.
I think it's funny how much hypocrisy there can be, and I think we should just call ourselves out on our judgmentalism and admit to it. Like, just all admit that we judge,
Yeah.
and not judge each other for being judgers. It's just sort of, it's not necessarily what I would call human nature, but I would say it is natural given the circumstances of the story we live in.
Well, we look, we operate in a dualistic way of thinking, and so we're always, judging one thing against another thing. We're picking and choosing constantly, and in the very act of picking and choosing, you're choosing one thing over another thing. Therefore, you're judging one thing over another thing. I think it's very, very difficult to get out of that dualistic paradigm.
Yeah.
In order to function, we have to pick and choose. It's
Right.
just a question of, are we really picking and choosing for the right reasons, and how are we picking and choosing, and are we acknowledging that there's work to be done there in terms of how we navigate that.
Right. And so I'm going to use that as a segue into the next chapter on hate. And I think the distinction, and when we talk about judgment versus discernment, obviously we need to judge, like, is that bridge strong enough to hold my car before I drive over it or whatever. But in particular with judgment, what we're talking about here, negative judgment being the actual, making someone or something wrong, and, deeming it unworthy or bad in some way. In the chapter on hate, Charles wrote, by refusing to hate, we are committing a kind of betrayal. We are betraying the story of the world that pits good versus evil. When we ourselves stand in a different story from blame and hate, we become capable of dislodging others from that place too. Have you ever hated someone you later grew to like or even love?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I went through a phase in my teen years when I mean, and hate's a very strong word. I don't use it very often. I prefer the word dislike, but when I was in my teen years, there was a time when I really hated my father. Hated him for the way he judged me and treated me and criticized me, and really felt tremendous anger and dislike toward him. And then, of course, later on, all of that evaporated as I became an adult myself and put myself into his shoes and experienced some of the things that he had experienced being a parent and realizing he did the best he could, and it may not have always been on track with what I believed should have been happening. But so, that sort of hatred, if you like, dissolved and went away and turned into love. And I think, love is the opposite of hate. Again, it's the two sides of the same coin. You can't really have one without the other. I think hate's important to acknowledge. And I think it's important on some level to be able to hold that in your heart and to look at it for what it really is. And perhaps hate is the deepest manifestation of the unmet need of the deepest form of love.
That's beautiful. So, and your story is a perfect example of the shift from dispositionism to situationism. Like once you understood, once you put yourself in his shoes, you let go of the judgment and you stopped hating him, and that allowed the love to come through. Beautiful. So let's move on. We're on the last chapter now, righteousness. The underlying cause of righteousness, according to Charles, is an unmet psychological need for self-approval. What are some things you tend to feel righteous about?
Huh. Wow. Boy, this is a very personal podcast, Scott.
But hey, you didn't have to prepare for it.
I know. That's good. What do I feel self-righteous about? Again, I'm having a difficulty coming up with a specific thing. I think I get that feeling a lot, though. I think if I'm honest, then yeah, there's times where I definitely feel self-righteous. Like, well, let's take one example, for instance, like sometimes I feel very self-righteous about our decision to unschool and not send our daughter to school. And then, I talk to people who have kids who are in school and they're complaining and how horrible it is, and whining about all the difficulties and problems, and I feel kind of self-righteous. Well, hey, just do what I'm doing, and then you won't have to deal with all of this. And it's easy to sort of step onto that pedestal and elevate oneself, above someone else. So I guess that's one example. But again, I think that's happening all the time.
That sort of righteousness, you mean?
Yeah, that feeling, because I think that comes kind of hand in hand with judgment, if you're and hate too. Like if you're judging someone and hating someone and criticizing someone, then automatically you're putting yourself into a position of self-righteousness. Right. That somehow, I don't do what they do, I'm better than that. Yeah. I'm different than them. Even saying that you're different from them is a form of self-righteousness, in a sense.
And I think a lot of it really arises from conventional parenting, where the focus is on being a good girl or a good boy,
Right.
And essentially what that means in conventional thinking is, are you doing the right things? And so when you associate your behavior with your own worthiness and your sense of not just righteous behavior, but just rightness in the world, then I think that's the seed of this habit of always needing to be right. Because if you aren't, that means you must not be worthy of love. You must not be worthy of existence.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, these are good chapters. I should go read them now.
Over and over.
Yes, that's the thing. This book is like that. You can continually go back into it and get something different out of it every time. It's such a deep book.
Great. So I have one more question to pose to the audience, to the viewers, which is to, over the next week, to listen to the things that you say and notice that your words are sometimes really kind of rooted in this idea of overcoming evil. Like that the whole story of life is this story like an action film of identifying the evil and then overcoming it and destroying it in some way. And as an example, I just thought like even the word, when I say, oh, I enjoy that challenge, like the word challenge is actually a word from combat. I mean, and so think of all just how it's embedded in our language to use words that that embody this story of, there's the good folks and the bad folks, and the right folks and the wrong folks, and we need to destroy whatever's bad or wrong. So that's my mindfulness assignment to anyone who wants to take it on. I find that very helpful, just to pay attention to the things that you think and say.
What's interesting, what just popped into my head when you were saying that is, there's the good folks and the bad folks and the right folks and the wrong folks, is that individually we're all of us in both of those camps at all times, and we flip back and forth. Because we may think we're the good folks and those folks over there are the bad folks, but then to somebody else, we look like the bad folks. So where are we really, right? It's an interesting dilemma, and I think we're constantly flipping and flopping back and forth between those paradigms there.
All right. Well, we've gone over 15 minutes, but it's just inside your particular time cushion that you had.
Thank you.
Well, let's wrap this up. Go ahead.
I say thank you for being flexible with this week's episode. Things are a little hectic this week for me, so hopefully we'll be back on track next week. And that was an interesting experiment, Scott.
I hope you liked it. I hope our viewers liked it. I think we didn't get off track. We just changed the track. And so we're going with the flow, and I feel good about it.
Good.
And we get to explore new possibilities. I think that's what the More Beautiful World is all about. So next week we have, how many chapters is it? 5 or 6? I think it's 5. Yeah. 5 chapters, and I didn't write it down. So it's the next 5 chapters. And remember to go check out Rethinking Everything. That's where we're all convening in just a few weeks with Charles Eisenstein to continue this conversation in person. So why don't you wrap it up then?
Well, great. I'm looking forward to that very much. And the closer it gets, the more excited I get about going there and being, really diving in deep. So there's so much more to explore from this book and just in general. So I'm really excited. It's coming right up.
Here we go. All right. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thank you, Scott. See you next time.
Bye-bye.